Hey, what's up? It's Jake from Novus DevOps, and I am learning Kubernetes. Let's take a look at my Terraform code and see the changes that I've made in order to make my cluster more cost effective. First, I added a US Central 1A location instead of US Central 1. What this does is it forces the creation of a zonal cluster instead of a regional cluster. I did some research, and this is the easiest way to control that. It says that if you specify a zone, the cluster will be made into a zonal cluster with a single cluster master. If you specify a region, the cluster will be a regional cluster with multiple masters spread across zones in the region. This is great for provisioning time too, because it should take a lot less time for me to get the cluster up and running. It will also be a lot cheaper. Let's test it out. 2 to add looks good. Let's go ahead and say yes. One thing I noticed in the default pool is the machine type is E2 medium, which seems a little much for my node pool. It looks like deleting this default node pool is what ends up taking that extra long time. Alright, well it finished 10 minutes and 12 seconds. The cluster was done. The node pool took just over a minute. So let's get a connection going on. We're just going to copy this, paste it. Alright. kubectl get all in all namespaces. And we are in. Sweet. So still 10 minutes to get a GKE cluster up instead of using Minikube. It's not bad. It's not horrible. It's like a cup of coffee. So let's take a look at what we built. We have a cluster with one node, 2 CPUs, 2 gigs of memory. We can see that it is a zonal node with a total size of 1. Here's my node pool set with one node. Machine type is E2 small. So I'm assuming the E2 medium that I saw was the initial default node pool that was started, and then it was deleted, which took forever, but was eventually replaced with E2 small. So E2 medium must be the default machine type if you don't say anything else. Alright, this looks good. One issue I have is when I try to do a Terraform destroy, it says that deletion protection is on, but I can't find deletion protection anywhere. Given the preemptible nature and machine type of this custom container node pool, I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and leave this code as the default that I use whenever I provision a cluster for doing Kubernetes work. If you have any recommendations, let me know, but if not, I think that's what I'm going to go do. So I was finally able to reproduce this error. You can see cannot destroy cluster because deletion protection is set to true. Set it to false, proceed with cluster deletion. Let's make a second cluster real quick. Let's not remove the default node pool, and let's comment out this entire section. It took 5 minutes and 49 seconds, so almost 6 minutes. So we took off about 4 minutes by not having to delete that default cluster. The downside is we have an E2 medium machine type and it's not preemptible, so it's going to be more expensive. But it did only make one node. It's still standard, it's still zonal. So in closing, we are going to remove the default node pool. We are going to keep our container node pool with our preemptible VMs at E2 small, keep the cost down, and we're just going to have to be a little bit more patient, and we'll see how it goes. For now, let's do a Terraform destroy and see if this works, because I've set deletion protection to false. Alright, deletion protection works just fine. Apparently you can just use it wherever you want, even if it's not in the documentation, so that's good to know. So there you go. We've got an E2 small node running in a preemptible VM in a custom node pool on a GKE cluster in Google Cloud, and I am super stoked that I have a less expensive version of what I had yesterday. So this is awesome. If you'd like to steal this pattern, feel free to do so. I'm not copying this from anywhere. I'm just kind of like winging it and going through the motions and iterating on my previous pattern until I find something that works. Obviously, this is not a production state. This is just like me messing around with stuff. So don't use this in production. Don't use this pattern in production. Or hell, I don't know. Maybe you have a reason to use this in production. But I personally don't feel qualified to be telling anyone what to do in production right now. So I'm going to leave Google Cloud alone for a little while. I think I'm going to keep learning about GKE along the way. But for now, we'll focus on Kubernetes and moving into the Mumshab Mamabeth's training, and we'll go from there. So this is what I'll be using for my playground. If you have any questions, let me know. But if not, I'm Jake from Nimbus DevOps, and I am learning Kubernetes.